Hey, have you ever struggled to make the right decision, to know exactly what you're supposed to do, but then something magically happens and you get this voice and it tells you exactly what to do? Well, if you want to repeat moments like that where you're just tapped in, tuned in, and your intuition is on fire, today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to do that. Welcome to Thriving Launch with Luis Congdon and Kamala Chambers, the show for heart-centered entrepreneurs who want it all.
Maybe you can relate to this. When I was a full-time coach, I found that I had to keep repeating the same things to people over and over and over again, and it got to be kind of draining, and I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing anymore. So what I decided to do was record the things that I had to tell clients over and over and over again. And then I packaged those recordings together and sold them as an online course. If you're interested in creating and selling your own online course, head over to thrivinglaunch.com and I have a free training for you on how to create and make passive income through your own online course. We are here with John Holland. He's an internationally renowned psychic, medium, spiritual teacher, author, and radio host.
Hey, Thriving Launchers, let's dive in. We've got John Holland here on the line. John, are you ready to launch?
Absolutely.
So, John, one of the things that I really absolutely love and I find that is essential is learning how to cultivate your intuition. It's something that allows us to tune into this just wealth of information, gazillions of pieces of information, and with our intuition, we're able to pick what's the most important and tap into something. But for most of us, we don't even know what intuition is, how to tap into it. How do you describe intuition? What is that?
Well, intuition, I think it's an inner knowing, and many people they might have said, you know what, I have this feeling, I got this gut feeling, or I have this instinct that, or I really feel I shouldn't go in this direction, or I feel that. So basically, it's that inner knowing, and we all experience it. Unfortunately, most of us don't listen to it because we trust logic as opposed to intuition. So it is basically that it's that gut response. Some people feel it in their stomachs. Other people feel a shiver up their back. It's different with everybody else, but it's that inner knowing without knowing how you know it.
Yeah, this is such an important piece that I'm so glad that you're bringing to the interview today, because it's something that has really shaped the lives of Luis and I know a lot of the Thriving Launchers as well. What would you say the difference is between psychic abilities and intuition?
Yeah, very good question. A lot of people, sometimes they use interchangeably, and to me, it's almost the same thing, really. But I look at it this way. Intuition, every once in a while, you get that prompt not to drive on a certain road because you think it might be a traffic jam. You don't know how you know it. Or you feel that there's something wrong with somebody else. You have a feeling that there's something wrong with somebody else in another state or another country. It just comes to you once in a while. Psychic ability, to me, is making intuition work for you. Instead of getting that download every once in a while, psychic ability is taking your intuition and making it work for you. So there's intuition, and there are ways that you can learn to turn it on and to focus it just like psychic ability. So intuition, that gut response, psychic ability, making intuition work for you when you want it to work, not just every once in a while.
So one of the things that I've come across, and I've heard people say this a lot, is I can't tell if I'm having a psychic or intuitive experience or if it's just a voice in my head. Because we all have this kind of narrator or this conversation going on. And sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference between that voice and that narrator going on and some sort of intuitive hunch or some sort of psychic thing that's actually happening. Is there something that we can do to maybe tell the difference or to cultivate the intuitive psychic part of ourselves so that we know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just quickly, when I talk about intuition and psychic ability is taking it to the next level, understanding the energy centers, the aura, how the information comes in, learning your equipment. That's psychic ability. Learning how intuition comes in, whether it's a thought, whether you're hearing, feeling, or seeing. But many times, Louis, people do that all the time. I look at it this way as an example. If someone is sitting at their desk at work and they hear a voice in their head or a thought, I should call my sister, and it happens out of the blue. They weren't listening to the sister. Well, they may say to themselves, okay, I talked to my sister last week. I'll call her when I get home. Then another day goes by. You didn't call her. That same thought keeps happening again. I got to call my sister. And of course, person doesn't listen to it. And they're like, I just talked to her. I'll call her next week. Next day or later in the day, that same thought keeps coming over. I look at it this way. Intuition, psychic ability keeps coming back. With imagination, it'll come in and go away and not come back. Intuition keeps knocking on the door, and it gets louder and louder and louder until you pay attention to it. So if you keep getting a thought, even if you're like, well, how do I even know this is my thought? If it keeps coming back to you, most likely it's your intuition knocking on the door. Most people don't listen to it until it gets louder and louder and louder. For instance, we all have smoke detectors in our house, or most of us should. I find that when something comes to me that has nothing to do with in my life, okay, if it has nothing that's going on in my life, I may walk into my house and I might get the thought, which happened to me, and I said, I really should change those. Now, it wasn't the time. Most people change their fire systems and their fire alarms, their smoke detectors every season. But some months ago, I walked in and I said, I looked up, I said, I really should change that. Well, I didn't listen to it. And I do this for a living, this work. And what happens? It starts beeping. So what happens? My dog starts freaking out. So that was the thought. But we get so many thoughts every single day. How do you know it's that thought? It's practice. You start to know, like, okay, wait a minute. But a big clue, if it keeps coming back, it's your intuition. If a thought comes to you out of the blue that has nothing to do with what's going on in your life or around you, I would look into that thought or think deeper on that thought. Absolutely.
One of my favorite words that you said there is practice. It takes practice, and I've really found that it's a muscle that we have to develop, and the more that we use it,
Sure.
the stronger it gets. Can you give us some clear and practical things, ways that we can apply developing intuition into our daily lives?
Yeah, play with it. Play with it first. It took us we're all born intuitive. Let's keep that. It's so weird. You can say the word intuition, it's accepted. You say the word psychic, it immediately goes into the woo-woo field. People start thinking it's like, oh, it's fortune telling. It's not. It's, psychic means of the soul. So what you can do is have fun with it. We forget that we're intuitive. We're all born this way. Then we start school as kids, and the right creative side, that intuitive side, gets pushed aside. The left analytical side starts to take over because we have to learn math, listening to teachers. This is where logic comes in. So life has a way of pushing intuition away from you. So what you do is have fun with it. We all get emails every single day. Before you turn your email on, just say to yourself, I wonder how many emails I have. If you get a utility bill in the mail or now email, I wonder how much the bill is going to be. If you work in a office building that has 6 elevators, 3 on one side, 3 on the other, try standing in the one that you think that's going to open, and try not to look at the thing above the elevator. Try to guess or play with, I wonder what color my boss is going to wear tomorrow. And then it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. There are many ways, and kids are doing this now too, though. I mean, 2 kids could hold different color crystals in their hand. Some kid will hold it behind their back, and the kid will be facing the other way, and he'll try to intuit what the other kid picked up. And we tell kids, have fun with it. This is not a test. So whether you use email, what color is your boss going to wear tomorrow, an elevator, make them up yourself, whether it's a utility bill, and just practice. And then you'll understand, all right, I got that right. If you're totally off, you know that was your imagination coming in and you made up the answer. So little things, have fun with it. It's not meant to be so hard. It's your inner compass. It's there for you. We're all born with it. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of us don't listen to it.
What I really love about that is the playfulness and the curiosity that you bring to it. And that's such an important element. I know when I really was diving into developing my intuition at a young age, I would do this practice where I'd wake up in the morning and I would find an object that I'd see a picture of an object and I would try to materialize it throughout the day. And I know that I had this experience where I saw this picture of a really beautiful white feather. And then that day I said, this is the day I'm going to find this white feather. I found this beautiful white eagle feather out in a field. And I think it's things like that, is just having the playfulness and the curiosity throughout the day. Is there anything else that you'd add to that?
Well, how do you know that? I mean, you think you chose the feather. How do you know your intuition didn't choose the feather and then you thought you chose the feather? Do you see what I mean? So maybe you knew you were going to find a feather instead of you thinking, I'm going to find one. Maybe you already knew precognitively, meaning ahead, that you're going to find that. But like I said, anything that you can do to play with it also is fine. And intuition is important. People are like, well, when should we use intuition? When you're feeling stuck, when you have a major choice in front of you or a decision in front of you. You're working on different projects for a creative idea. So there's many ways that intuition can come in and help you. But it's a good idea, what you said. Just play with it. Just play with it any way you can. And I used to play when I was a kid. Little did I know that I was practicing this work even as a child. I used to say to my mother, pick a number, and we would do 1 to 20. And so even that was training me even as a child. Have fun with it.
You brought up an interesting point for me, John, because I've been thinking a lot about, I've been thriving launches. I want to just share something briefly, is that I remember when I worked at this bookstore and I made this decision, I'm going to get a job working in the field of psychology. You guys know that I ended up working in a marriage education field at the age of 24 doing PhD level work that I wasn't qualified for. But I made that statement and I went into work and I told my boss, I said, I'm going to need to leave at the end of the month. And my boss said, well, are you hired for a particular job? And I said, no, I'm going to be hired for a job in the field of psychology. So I wanted to let you know I'm going to be leaving. And she said, well, have you been sending resumes out? Have you been doing interviews? And I said, no, but I just know that at the end of the month, I'm going to need to leave. And it was actually 2 months later that I ended up getting hired in the field of psychology, working for the Gottman Institute in a very large research project. And one thing that I've been thinking about, John, is those moments when I felt that sense of certainty or clarity that this is what I want, this is what I'd like to create, and I made a statement about it. And I have this curiosity. Do you believe that we are making those statements and creating those moments, or that we're tapping into something and seeing it and then living it?
Isn't it interesting though, right? It's interesting. I think the intuitive thought was there first, and then you made the decision. But was it your thought? Was it an intuitive thought that was put in there? But the best thing you did was, I mean, talk about being confident. You knew it was going to happen, and that's quite. And now we're not telling people to quit their jobs because they get an intuitive hit. Okay, you just happen to know that. You know what I mean? And I'd be curious to ask you: was it a knowing? Was it because intuition comes in many ways. It's an inner voice. It could be a physical sensation, a dream, a picture, or even just a knowing, which it sounds like. Even synchronicity and coincidences happen. So how did you know that, or did you just know it?
John, that's a really fascinating question for me to inquire about. I also have another time when I woke up one morning and I said, today I'm going to meet somebody who specializes in NLP. And that's something that I really had wanted to know. It was this big world for me that I'd never heard much about, but all of a sudden it was coming to me. And that day a woman came into the bookstore, we got in a conversation, and she happened to do NLP. She gave me her information and said, why don't you call me and we'll set up a session and I'll just gift it to you. And one of the things I guess that I felt was this sense of like, it's going to happen. And part of it is because I want it to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And like your partner said about the feather, it could be you are manifesting. You see it, you feel it, and many people, as you know, we're all taught affirmations. And I say this too: you just can't. If somebody wants to meet somebody, or they're not in a relationship, they cannot sit on the couch. The perfect relationship is coming to me now. I am in the perfect relationship. You got to get off the couch. Do you know what I mean? You have to get off the couch. But what I do is, if you're going to do an affirmation, see it as if it's already happened in the present. Bring in that feeling of if you already had it. If you're selling a house, see the for sale sign. I know we're talking about manifestation and not intuition right now, but if you want to sell your house, see the for sale sign on your front lawn and see yourself how joyful it would be knowing that your house just got sold. Because I think that's the power of manifestation, when you bring in the imagery with the emotion of it also. So it is pretty cool. But with something like that, you could be easily manifesting something. And if it's for your highest good, watch for the signs. People, it's so funny. People try to manifest, and you may want a new job. Somebody approaches you in the supermarket behind you, and they start talking, and that could be what you asked for, but you don't even realize it. So honor that. Watch for the synchronicities and the coincidences. Although I don't believe in coincidences. So you asked about NLP. And there it was. I mean, synchronistic events happen all the time. You put the thought out there, the universe met you halfway, and there you go. And when you made this, Lewis, when you made this choice, that it empowered you. When intuition shows its sign too, when you're feeling excited about something, as opposed to when you're feeling drained, that's the wrong way to go. If you're feeling drained about a decision, it's the wrong way. Intuition, it'll have that spark, it'll have that excited emotion to it.
One thing I'm curious about too, for the listeners here, John, is that when we sit and we make statements of desire, or we start to envision something that we want, or we do a dream board, or we pick up a book on the topic,
sure.
Do you think that also kind of wakens up our intuition to start looking for those things, or to start being kind of, I guess, intuitively tapped in a way that just gives us that extra oomph, or that extra power that takes us? I don't know. Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're basically asking I say to my students too, when they're working psychically or intuitively, your psychic ability, your intuitive self wants to know, what do you want to know? What do you want to know? Instead of just waiting for that download, instead of just getting intuition every once in a while, by you taking those steps of like, and a friend of mine, Lynn Robinson, who's an intuitive coach, she, because some people say, will I get this job? That's not asking. I don't even know if you know this. There's right ways to ask your intuition question. Instead of saying, will I get the job? Good questions to do, and that she taught me, is, what's my right next step? How could I? What is the best way to? What do I need to know about? Ask it like that, okay? What is my next step? And then you may get a flash, you may get a feeling, you may get words. But yeah, by you sitting down, trying to tap in, you're saying to your intuition, please work in partnership with me. It's beautiful.
All right, John Holland, Thriving Launchers, I encourage you all to take some of the gems, the many gems that came through this interview today, and apply it, play with it. Discover how you can incorporate your intuition into your daily lives more and more. And I love how, John, you talked about just being curious with it and playful with it, and just in a process of discovery, and that muscle will strengthen. Go out there and keep thriving, everyone. You've been listening to the Thriving Launch podcast. For books and resources related to today's episode, make sure to head over to thrivinglaunch.com. We'll see you there.